Hello, this is Berger, back again with Bowling Over 50. This channel was designed for bowlers who are over 50 years old or with a little less ball speed and a little lower rev rate. But one of the things I've learned over the last month is that we have a lot of beginning bowlers who are coming to the channel and watching these videos to learn how to hook the ball and various aspects of bowling that they're trying to learn. And one of the things that I noticed recently is that we've been talking about lane play. And we'll have a video coming up very soon about making lane adjustments. And I'm talking about boards, and I'm talking about where I'm standing and things of that nature. And some people are not following. So I wanted to do a video basically diagramming the lane and understanding what people are bowling on. So that's what today's video is going to be about. No bowling today, not going to be throwing any shots. We're just going to be talking about the lane and how the lane is devised and all the aiming spots and the targeting system that is built into the lane, as well as some of the other aspects of bowling. The first thing is I've had some questions about various things in a bowling center and the things that you're bowling on, and one of the questions we've had is about bowling pins. You can find this information out on Google, but I'm going to kind of let you know now. This bowling pin, this is a bowling pin. It is made of maple. Maple wood is what's on the inside, and then it's covered in plastic. Most bowling pins are like that. There are a brand of bowling pins called Twisters that are 100% synthetic. Getting rid of the wood, they're all plastic. They do bounce a little bit more in general than one of these, but they're very, very similar. So Twister pins are 100% plastic, synthetic, and they are legal. They're USB-C sanctioned. They just a little bit different than the maple covered bowling pins that most centers do have. This bowling pin's 15 inches tall. And I've had a question on how wide the bowling pins are. Well, at the base, at the bottom here, it is at the bottom of the pin, it's 2 1/4 inches wide. And then at the waist of it, the belly of the pin, it's about 4.7 inches around the base part of the pin. Then we get up into the neck of the pin, which is about 1.8 inches wide here at the neck. All those bowling pins have the same kind of standard. The biggest difference in some of these pins is the weight. Some pins can weigh 3.6 ounces. Some of the pins can be as heavy as 3.10 ounces. So one of the things I tell my students is that if it's 3.10 ounces, let's call it 4 pounds. You have basically 4 pounds per pin down the lane. Well, if you put 10 of them, that's almost 40 pounds of pins that you're trying to knock down with a bowling ball. There are a lot of people out there that want to throw lighter weight bowling balls. And I understand if you're having elbow issues, wrist issues, if you're a little older and you just can't manage a heavier ball, you know, lighter weight does make sense. But my comment to that would always be, go for the highest weight bowling ball that you can handle. Handle easily. And so the heavier your bowling ball, the more momentum and inertia you have when the ball hits the pins. An 8 or a 9 pound ball going after 40 pounds of pins is a lot less successful than a 15 pound ball going after 40 pounds of pins. So one of the things we're going to do from here is I'm going to be moving down the lane, and we're going to be kind of explaining a few things about the lane and how bowling works and things like that. And then as we, interesting. they turned on a lane. Okay, in the rest of this video, we're going to be talking about the lane, how it's designed, the aiming and targeting features of the lane. And so we're going to move down the lane and we're going to start at the pins. Okay, we're down at the pin deck. So here is your rack of pins, and we're looking kind of at an angle to the side of the 1-3 pocket. So I want you to notice the difference between the head pin and the pin that is directly to its right, which is the 3 pin. That angle right there, or that gap between them, is fairly small. And so you're looking at this at about a 3-degree angle. There is exactly 1 foot between each of these pins. From the center to the center of each pin is exactly 1 foot. As I move closer to the gutter, you will notice that the gap between the head pin and the 3 pin is getting wider. Now we're at an angle right now of about 9 or 10 degrees, so a little bit more than what we discussed when hooking a ball the area you want to be on. But if you noticed as I moved that the gap between the 1 and the 3 becomes wider. That is the reason why you want to be on a 6-degree angle. So we're going to move this to a 6-degree angle, and that's what your ball is looking at as it's traveling towards the pins. As you get skinnier or less angle at 2 or 3 degrees, that gap becomes smaller, and then as you move to the right and your ball is hooking, that gap becomes larger. So that's what it looks like here from the pin deck, and what the pins look like as they are racked and getting ready for you to throw your strike. Okay, now that we've looked at what goes on the pin deck and at the pins, now we need to talk about the rest of the part of the lane. There are some aiming devices, targeting aids for you to use on the lane to help you get more strikes and be more successful by you having some place to aim at. As we move back towards the foul line, the first thing that we might come to in about, say about this area, in some centers, there are rangefinders, what we call rangefinders. There will be long lines on the 10 board here and a couple of shorter ones that are here and here, kind of in the more middle part of the lane, and then another rangefinder on the 10 board on this side. This is a targeting aid. It's not available in this house. It's available in a lot of bowling centers across the country. It's a targeting aid to help you aim down here and find something to look at as you target through your targeting systems as you get closer to the foul line. So it's not available in this house, but in some places you will see targeting aids. The main one you want to look at to help you, and you've heard me talk in some of my other videos about me putting a piece of tape on the lane to help me target through the arrows, is they may have these rangefinders. But as we move closer to the foul line, the first real targeting aid that you will see in every bowling center in the country is the arrows, what we call the arrows. They are just really 6 to 8 inch long triangles that are placed very specifically on the bowling lane. So one of the things you might know or might not know is from the foul line to the head pin, the lane is 60 feet long. From the edge of the lane to the other edge of the lane is 41.5 inches wide. We really say 40. And these arrows are placed very strategically on the lane at various places. When bowling first started, we bowled on wood lanes. We had wood planks that were laminated together that were about 10 inches deep to give you some room to do some sanding if people loft the ball too far and put dents in the lane. So you had to sand the lanes. And you had to do that every year. But the lanes had to stay in spec, so you couldn't have a drop in the lane, so you would have to change everything across the bowling center. So in the 80s, I started seeing synthetic lanes come out. It was basically a lamination effect of almost what we would call thick formica that was being put over the lanes so that the lanes would not have to be sanded. But when they started doing that in the beginning, they had arrows, but the targeting system was not there. So what they started doing to keep them looking like wood is they printed a wood pattern on them. And they are in boards. The same number of what looks like boards on the lane are here now as they were in the beginning. There are 39 boards to span 40 inches. So each board is approximately 1 inch wide. As you look at the arrows, each one of these arrows is placed on a specific board. They're in 5s. So the first arrow, we call it first arrow here, and on the left-handed side over here is on the 5 board. So there's 4 boards to the right of this arrow towards the gutter. This arrow is on the 10 board, which we call second arrow. This arrow is on the 15 board, which we call third arrow. And the center arrow is on the 20 board, which means there are 19 boards to the left and 19 boards to the right of the center arrow, making this 40 inches wide. 41 and a half, but close enough. So when we start talking about targeting, one of the things that we talk about is boards, making moves by boards, 1 inch moves. So we'll talk a little bit about your feet here in a little bit because the boards correspond to what goes on in the approach. But when you're aiming, we talk about boards. So if you were aiming at the 9 board, you were looking 1 board to the right of second arrow because second arrow is on the 10 board. So the 9 board, if you are looking at the 9 board, you're 1 board right of that. I even make my adjustments in half boards. So when I am looking at the arrows and looking at a specific board, I look at the seam. That seam gives me a half a board. The other thing is these arrows start at about 12 feet. When you get to the third arrow on both the left and the right side, those arrows are at 15 feet. So as you notice, these arrows are moving away from you as they move inside. So when you're targeting, if you are targeting the 9 board here, and you were going to make a 4 board move to the left, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me. Now you're 2 boards right of third arrow. If you're aiming 2 boards right of third arrow, you are aiming almost a foot further down the lane. So when you're targeting, this is more advanced and intermediate. When you are targeting specific boards and you're wanting to keep the same ball motion down lane, you need to keep your eyes in line with what you were looking at at the beginning. If you were looking at the 9 board here and you move 4 boards this direction, you need to be looking ahead in front of third arrow. If you look at third arrow, you have now moved your break point 1 foot farther towards the head pin. So everything gets off a little bit. So my caution is when you are making adjustments with your eyes and what you are looking at, make sure you're looking in a straight line that direction. If you look at the arrows, you're going to be further and further and further closer to the head pin when it hits the mark that you're trying to get. So, in my videos, you're going to hear me talk about 2-in-1 moves. The first number is always going to be with your feet. The second number is what you are looking at. You're targeting. So if you are looking at 9, you're looking 1 board right of second arrow. If you're looking at second arrow, you're looking at the 10 board, 11 board, and so on. I know I'm trying to break this down super simply, but some of our viewers, I want to make sure that they understand what I'm talking about here. Now, when you're aiming, The reason why these arrows aren't any further down the lane is it is a lot easier to aim at things that are closer to you. If you are aiming at a spot way down lane, that is much harder to hit than something that is a little bit closer to you. And it's like shooting any kind of gun, arrow, anything that you need to be accurate with darts, for example. The phrase is aim small, miss small. Aim big, miss big. So let's say you're a bowler that throws the ball in an area, and that's what you like doing. I like throwing the ball between first and second arrow. You have got almost 7 inches, well, you do have 7 inches to get in this area of the lane. That's aiming pretty big. You have a lot of area that you can miss. If you miss to the left or to the right, you could be missing by over a foot. That's not super successful strategy as you're trying to hit a spot that's very, very small down the lane, which we showed you with the pins. So I encourage everybody, aim small, miss small. Focus on one spot on the lane. Keep your focus on that spot. By doing that, some of the things that you would be worried about is my release, my approach, all those swing thoughts that come through your head might go away if you focus all your attention on one specific spot at the arrows. As we move closer to the foul line, you're going to see a row of dots. These dots are not standard. Some of them are 6 feet from the foul line. Some of them can be as far as 7.5 feet from the foul line. And they look very random. They're not as normal as, say, the arrows. So let's these are also training aids, alignment aids, targeting aids. So one of the things we talked about in the video about hooking is that I'm trying to get the ball on the lane a little bit faster. One of the things I did to help me get the ball on the lane faster is that I moved my targeting from the arrows to this first set of dots. Because if I'm aiming at the arrows, there was more of a chance for me to loft the ball towards my target. Well, there wasn't more of a chance, that's what I was doing. So I thought, well, if I move my target closer to me, I will get the ball on the lane a little bit faster because I'm aiming for something closer to me. And that really did work. I did that for about a year, and then once I got comfortable releasing the ball closer to me, I moved my visual, my training back out to the arrows. I trained my eyes to look at the arrows, but I was still putting the ball down, hopefully before the dots. So in this center, as in most centers, the dots don't necessarily line up completely with the arrows. This first dot typically is on the 3 board. The second dot is typically on the 5 board, which would be in line with second arrow. And then it's 1, 2, 3. We've got this dot is now on the 8 board, 11 board, and 14 board. So the only dot that actually lines up with an arrow is that second dot from the gutter, which is on the 5 board. So if you're having trouble getting it on the lane faster, move your eyes a little bit closer to you and start using the dots. But remember, this dot does not correspond with third arrow at all. It's 1 board right of that. So just keep that in mind. So now as we move closer, we get to the foul line. And everybody knows the foul line. And there we go, we got a buzz. Okay, so now we're at the foul line. In general, there is really only one rule in bowling. And that is that you have to throw the bowling ball. Well, there's a lot of different rules, but the main rule is, in bowling, you have to throw the ball from behind the foul line. That's the major rule. There's a lot of things about the bowling ball weights and all those kind of things that you've got to pay attention to. But once you have all that down, the only rule that you have on getting from there to down there is stay behind this foul line. That's it. From the inside of the foul line to the head pin is 60 feet. You will notice right before the foul line is a row of dots. These dots correspond with the arrows. So this is first arrow, second arrow, third arrow, middle arrow, and so on from the left side. These dots correspond with those arrows down lane at 15 feet. This is, if you're not Wes Malott actually uses these dots when he looks down the lane. Then when he throws the ball, he's looking at the dots. Anthony Simonson does exactly the same thing. He's looking at these dots and he's looking at the first set of dots at about 6 to 7.5 feet down the lane. That's where they're looking. For me, what I use these dots for is when I slide, I might look down and see how far I've drifted from where I've started. That's the only reason why I use these dots, is to kind of help calculate how far I am moving from the left or the right. As an old guy, I move all over the place, but I usually only drift one board left or right, and I check that by using the dots here at the foul line. So now we will move further back. Okay, you won't be able to see me, but I'm just going to point this out. So as you move back on the approach, you're going to see a row of dots here. This is the first row of dots. Each one of these dots corresponds with an arrow at 15 feet. This house does not have the first dot, which would be right about there, which would be on the first arrow. So it starts with second arrow, third arrow, middle arrow, and so on. This house also has another row of dots closer to the back of the approach, which are the same. Second arrow, third arrow, middle arrow. First arrow is missing. This is where you stand. These are the areas that'll help you get your feet in the right area on the lane. Okay, so when targeting, we've talked about down lane. We've looked at the pins. We moved forward to the rangefinders that are not in this house but are in some houses. Then we move closer to the foul line and we come across the arrows, and we've explained the arrows and where they are located and about the boards on the lane. And then we come to the first row of dots, which is I'm trying to throw the ball in front of those first row of dots and trying to get the ball down on the lane. And then we come to the foul line and the first row of dots that help show you where your feet are. So then we've talked about the first row of dots and the second row of dots. Now we need to talk about how I aim and how I communicate my aim. Now there are a lot of people that are very successful in just stepping up on their approach and being in the general area and throwing their shot in a general area, and they are super successful, and they beat me, quite honestly, sometimes. But I'm a little older. I have to be a little bit more finite with my aiming process. I want to aim small, miss small, which means I want to be in the same place where I'm starting with my feet and in the same place of what I'm looking at the arrows. So I don't use the middle of my toe. Unless I put some kind of guidance system on the middle of the toe, that could change just a little bit. So I use the most definitive part of my foot to put on the lanes, and it's finite. I know I can see it, and it is the inside part of where my sole is. I can look straight down, past my fat belly, and I can see the floor and that edge. So if I was going to put my foot on the 10 board, the dot, the edge of my shoe is going to be up against the edge of that board, and I am seeing the 9 board just to my right. I am exactly on the 10 board for me. That's how I communicate it. If I needed to make a move, let's say a 2-in-1 move, we're talking about boards. I'm going to move 2 boards with my feet to the left. Now my foot is on 12. I can see the 11 board just to the right of my foot, and my edge of my shoe is up against the seam of those 2 boards. It would be finite. It would be exact. It's not an area. I have to be more exact because I want to be not perfect, but I want to aim small, miss small, start small, finish small, and make sure that I throw the best possible shot I can. So when we talk about moves, it's about boards. The first number I will give is how many boards I'm moving with my feet. So if I'm moving 4 and 2, I'm moving 4 with my feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm making a 2-board move with what I am looking at the arrows, my strike spot. That is how we communicate how we move in bowling. That is how I communicate in these videos where I'm moving to. And so we've had a bunch of comments about how I do that and what all that stuff means. I thought it would be necessary to do a video like this to communicate how we look at a lane and the targeting systems that are available to you on the lane. So I know this video was fairly elementary. A lot of bowlers already know all of this stuff, but we have a lot of new bowlers to the channel who don't quite understand what they're seeing on the lanes. And so that's why I did that. And I do appreciate you new bowlers who have found our channel. Even though this channel was designed for bowlers that are over 50 or with a little less ball speed and a little lower rev rate, you new bowlers, welcome to the channel. I hope there's things that I can say and help and make bowling a more fun experience for you. And so if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us out, helps us with algorithms, and really does benefit our channel, and it doesn't cost you a thing, so hit that subscribe button. So that's bowling over 50. That's how the lane is constructed. I hope you learned something today, maybe found one little nugget that you can take to help your bowling game become a little bit better. So I want you to have fun and good bowling.